Welcome to this episode of the Justice Team podcast on the Justice Team Network, where we give practical advice to lawyers out there. And I'm your host, Bob Simon. I'm honored to have the Miss Jamie Wright on today. How are you, Miss Wright?
I'm doing incredible, sitting next to the one and only extraordinary Bob Simon.
Well, you had me at extraordinary, what can I say? So those of you that don't know Jamie, she is an employee rights extraordinaire, from the disability cases to the workplace discrimination, has had some 8-figure verdicts, and has helped a whole lot of people out.
Thank you.
First of all, where do people find you?
Oh, I'm easy to find. Social media is my kind of go-to. So Instagram, Jamie Wright ESQ. My website is Jamie Wright ESQ. If you Google me, Jamie E. Wright ESQ, it all kind of links to the same place.
And do you practice all over California?
Literally,
everywhere?
Literally, from counties you've never heard of that I've only recently heard of, like Hollister County to San Diego County and everywhere in between.
So what are some of the areas, like your bread and butter, the stuff that you like to do that you're passionate about? Let's do that.
Yeah, I'm really passionate about disability discrimination cases, sexual harassment, hostile work environment, race discrimination, though they're harder to prove. But sometimes in California, you get these employers who act insane, and I call them insane, for calling people the N-word, telling my brown brothers to go back to Mexico, harassing them and those kinds of things. And also some wage and hour cases.
Yeah, so what is a wage and hour case?
You're not being paid overtime. You're not getting your meal or rest breaks. And sometimes with those, if you make a complaint and you get retaliated against, or you're fired, or your hours are reduced, those are good cases too.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what's a typical fact pattern for a disability case, the stuff that you've been doing very well on and helping folks? What are some examples?
Yeah, so I've gotten a lot of nurses that are during the COVID, when the surge was happening, if they had an illness or they had a medical condition and they asked for an accommodation and the employer didn't want to accommodate them and they fired them. Or if someone is neurodivergent, they have ADHD or anxiety, not getting an accommodation. Or if they need a build out, like an ergonomic build out, because you have back problems. I have back problems sometimes. And the employer won't build out the chair or the desk or something like that. And
do you ever have hybrid cases? Because a lot of our personal injury cases, we have a lot of people that aren't being, now that I think about it, I probably think of a few that have injuries or they're not accommodated with at work.
Yes, so hybrid.
So if you had to talk to us personal injury lawyers or people out there that are representing the injured folks, what are some things that we should be telling our clients to do, other than just call you, but stuff that they have to do to kind of check those boxes with the employer? What are some things they need to do if they're being discriminated against?
Put it in writing. Put it in writing and CC yourself, because you'd be surprised how many emails disappear from the employer's email service. So CC yourself.
CC your personal email.
Oh, yeah. CC your personal email when you're writing these emails, if you're doing it from the employer.
Or BCC, so they don't know.
Or BCC. That's a key tip. And then you can always make a complaint besides their HR department to the Department of Fair Employment and Housing if you think it's happening and you're not quite yet ready to talk to a lawyer.
Yeah, so what are the steps somebody has to go through in order to even file disability discrimination? Is there an administrative process? Yeah, what's that like?
The California Civil Rights Division, which used to be called the Department of Fair Employment and Housing. So you have to make a complaint to them first. You got to get a right to sue. Some people want to go to EEOC. Do not go to EEOC, in my opinion. You have a shorter window of time to file your lawsuit, 90 days.
What's the new thing called?
California Civil Rights Division.
You know what? That's much better than the one before, because every time people would tell me, it's what does that have to do with work?
Yeah, it was just trailing the law, because the law is called the Fair Employment and Housing Act. So Department of Fair Employment and Housing. But California Civil Rights is definitely a better.
So they have to file, and do they have an attorney? Do they hire you to do that, or do they do that on their own?
They can do it themselves. I have some clients that do it themselves, and sometimes they ask the department to do an investigation, and then sometimes the department offers mediation, or you can have your lawyer do it. I prefer to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those are kind of, what are some other examples for people that are listening or watching, if they, or a loved one, or if they have a client that's being discriminated against? What are some of the common ways you do, other than we talked about the neurodivergent and the nurses that you've been representing?
Oh, yeah. So if someone can't drive a long distance, I had one lady who fell at her house and she couldn't drive a long distance. Someone who has a vision problem, a hearing problem. I do have a guy who had hearing loss. I had one lady who was losing hair from her scalp due to stress. So there's a whole broad range of them.
And I assume that, what's the intake like for you? Because I would assume you get a lot of calls.
I do. I have an intake person now. One of my paralegals. They typically like click on the thing on my website. There's like a button, and they send us a message, and I forward them to my intake person. He has a really detailed questionnaire he goes through, wanting all the background. He goes through a timeline, so he creates the initial timeline. I look at it. I say, okay, call them back and ask some additional questions, or I just get on Zoom and I talk to them. If they are not prepared to come to me, always catch me one way.
But I mean, you have to sift through a lot of referrals because, I mean, how many do you think calls you get per week or actual cases that you end up taking?
I probably get 15 to 20 hits to my website plus calls.
Wow.
Probably 1 to 2, because it's just I can't help everybody at once.
Yeah.
And the other thing is I oftentimes don't take cases from other lawyers. Like if they've had another lawyer for an extended period of time and they want to send it to me, it just gets a little tricky.
But you could refer a lot of work from other lawyers.
Yeah, I do. I do.
I've referred you cases.
Yeah, and I take them if it's referred outright. But like, say you had litigated the file for 6 months, I may not.
Well, I wouldn't touch a file that. Yeah,
no
I don't do those
disrespect to
cases.
you.
No.
But,
Yeah,
you
disrespect me
know,
all you like in these cases. No, but I think that's the beauty of what you do with mentorship, you know, with Justice HQ and stuff like that, is people know you as the go-to for these types of cases.
And I appreciate that. Justice HQ has been incredible, just as a resource and just as a network of friends and like creating like a family. And that's awesome when you feel like you're alone.
Are you I mean, you're the only attorney at your firm.
Yeah, I'm the only one, and then I co-counsel a lot now. Yeah.
I think you have to. I mean, I still co-counsel a lot because, I mean, your client deserves it, 1, and 2, just makes it more fun and easier.
It does. It does. Because sometimes when you're under the gun and you're dealing with a justice system that is not so blind, you have to have that support.
Yeah. So tell us about the other types of the case. We got the disability discriminations, that you do, and the workplace discrimination. So what's the workplace discrimination bucket look like? What types of cases?
Sex harassment, hostile work environment based on gender, cases where a supervisor is making a pass, quid pro quo, or just like sexual comments, images in the workplace, text messages that are inappropriate, sending porn in a text message. I mean, social media is crazy with what it's done in terms of
and everything is safe too. Everything's out there.
Literally, you can't get away from it. Like if you're gonna send a message on Instagram,
I could imagine you see some good stuff, like people, their DMs, even Snapchats, all this crazy stuff.
DMs are wild. Why would you ever, as a supervisor, DM the employee at 1 o'clock in the morning saying what you're doing?
Oh man, really? People do these things?
Yeah, and then proceed to send your private parts.
And it's always the guys.
Always the guys.
Man.
Always the guys. Although I no discrimination. It just tends to be the biggest percentage of the sex harassment case.
I mean, and it's so much more prominent more than other people. Well, it's probably always been there. It's just people are talking about it now more.
They're more comfortable,
around it.
And sometimes they're not. And I've had some that have come to me and they've been scared, like, especially if they're still employed, like I'm going to be retaliated against. I may lose my job. They're going to harass me. I have one who's still employed and they did just that. They've been harassing her, suspensions, random drug tests.
But so what happens in the situation where it's like a forced termination or a constructive one where they're making so hostile that like they're making you leave? Mm-hmm. Like what advice do you give your clients there, knowing that they're not going to be able to make rent if they leave the job?
Yeah, that's the hard part. I mean, oftentimes you can go file unemployment, right? I've seen some employers be kind of like awful and challenge that, but I always tell them, unless it's gross misconduct, you're still entitled to it, the unemployment. And then, there's disability, there's options.
Yeah, so you do a lot of those types of cases. What are the ones are you passionate about these days in the world of Jamie Wright?
The sex harassment cases, the disability. I'm passionate about all my clients. I don't really discriminate as long as they're honest with me and upfront about all the bad facts.
And are you, you'd have to with these amount of intake and calls that you get. I mean, do you have a system everything goes into, like your back end? I know you're a systems gal. We've talked about this. So why don't you tell our viewers and listeners about it?
I have my case, which allows the clients to get updates, which is great because they're not feeling like they're not being communicated with because they can always log in. I mean, of course, my staff is available to ask their questions. You can log in yourself, and you get a text message that tells you upcoming. And unfortunately, I get a lot of questions about that. Why do I have to appear? I'm like, no, you don't have to appear for the CMC. You're just getting it for information purposes. But the system we have is great. And
I love it.
Yes, and we integrated a process service as well, so we pay for everything at once.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, well, it's a good thing whenever you have a case management software that integrates with all your stuff, so it just makes it easier.
Yeah.
We're actually building out the integration with MyCase and CasePeer.
Are you?
On Attorney Share, yeah. So it'll be one click off. The other one, I know Clio does it now, FileVine, Lead Docket.
Great.
I think Litify does, all Salesforce, and MyCase and CasePeer. So people can just send you a lot more cases.
Yes, so tons more. We can sift through them.
Yeah. You just get these Attorney Share pings all the day. But then you have to have your network of people to refer to underneath you.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to. I mean, if I get a really great brain injury case, I'm like, Bob Simon?
Yeah, I'll take it. It's fine with me.
Like, you know,
Fine with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as we'll switch over to you as a human being and the stuff that you're doing, being a true solo, I'm sure being a solo when I started too, it's hard, right? So what are some things that you are doing or advice that you can give people out there that are young lawyers that may need help or mentorship?
Having a village is really important. And when I mean a village, family and friends that are honest with you, sincere, and that care about you. I was opposing an MSJ and also taking up a writ on one of the judges this week. And one of my friends in my village, who's also a lawyer, said, "Can I bring you dinner?" And I didn't even ask. And I thought that was really sweet. I didn't need it because my mama lives close by. So I just got the dinner from her. But just having a village of people that love you and can support you. And, if you have a family, because you have a family and I have a small kid, having that child care and like the village that can help you with that. So the village is important. And then like taking care of your mental and physical health is really important, because who cares if you have all the money and you're unhealthy?
Yeah, and a lot of people end up with toxic behavior, but the reason they do is usually because their circles are also doing toxic behavior.
Yeah, and I don't stand for that in my circle. I keep out as much toxicity as possible.
I agree 100%. I'm actually getting texts from my wife right now because one of our children got in trouble at school today because she lied for a friend who tried to bring something inappropriate into school.
Oh, yours did too. Mine was hitting somebody at the school,
wow,
so that's why.
Just day two. My wife's like, day two, like day two of school today.
Yes, mine was hitting somebody, and he was practicing his karate moves. That was the explanation he gave me in the car. So there's
He's 6? How old are you?
He's 4.
Boy, he's big.
Yeah, he's a big kid.
Yeah.
We're not the littlest people in the world, me or the dad. So I'm like, it's not like we're tiny, but he was hitting. So yeah.
That's all right. I remember the first time I actually personally met you was at Lottie Girl a couple of years ago. And the first thing you said, was you were looking for mentorship. And I said, well, let me put you in a circle of women. You
did that.
Yeah. And I was like, well, here's people that are great employment lawyers that I know.
And the huge verdict I was on was because of that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, but this is what the best thing about this is, like, within seconds, they're responding. Like, these are the busiest female trial lawyers in the space, and they respond right away. And then it was off from there. You met a lot of people. And that's, I think it's important. People just don't realize that how open to help everybody is that are good people, right? So
literally. And you didn't have to do that. And, most people might even be shy, but I was like, I think that's Bob Simon. Let me go roll up on him and have this conversation.
Oh, man. Yeah, I remember we were coming out of the, that was at La Costa.
Yeah.
The Omni La Costa, like one of those, which those rooms were so hard to find.
Yeah, they were. And like your very pregnant wife who was so cute with her belly out. I was like, oh my gosh, she's hot pink so cute.
Belly out. We're going to find that photo for this episode because it was epic.
I try to hide most of my pregnancy photos because I was 55 pounds over my weight now. It was like, I still don't know where that weight went. I was like, BJ, this is why you're so big. Oh, yes, 55 pounds. I was 135. I was 185 at the end of my pregnancy.
Wow. Well, God bless you. I could never do that tolerance. And if anybody discriminates against somebody because they're pregnant or tries to terminate you, know who to call. You know who to talk to, Ms. Jamie Wright. Well, Jamie, I want to thank you for coming on this episode of the Justice Team podcast on the Justice Team Network. They can ping the show if they want to get a hold of us or questions. Jamie Wright, Law, or ESQ, is that your handle?
ESQ, Jamie Wright.
Jamie, JamieWright, ESQ is the Instagram handle, and you can slide into her DMs. Please, no dick pics.
No dick pics.
Nope.
Not at 2 a.m. either.
Especially if you're not working with her, one of these creeps.
No dick
Creeks and Crooks. Well, thank you for coming on. This was nice.
Thank you.
It's
I
good.
appreciate it.